Welcome back to the Saints Squad Show. I'm your host, Dylan Sanders of Saints Wire, and I am ready for war.
Are we even live? Hold on. It still says...
It says live for me.
There we go. Now we're live. Hey, it's Ross Jackson. I'm the host of the Saints Squad. Screw Dylan Sanders. I'm here now. You're watching me.
John Hendricks, New Orleans football. Looky. I got hooky.
What?
It's former Saints wide receiver Lance Moore. And if anybody sees Jamar Chase anytime soon, tell him I'm a big fan of his as well.
It's the Saints Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything New Orleans Saints, every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from down in the Big Easy, the way only Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Saints Squad Show, starting now.
Look, Dylan, I got your back, dude. I got your back.
Thank
you
you.
did the right thing.
Thank you.
Ross is on another planet this afternoon.
It's me. I don't know if you saw me or not at the top, but either way, it's me, Dylan. And howdy, Who Dat Nation. Welcome back to the Saints Squad Show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making us your first listen every Monday and Thursday. We have a unique group of experts here ready to bring you a fun and informative show on everything New Orleans Saints. Today, we're going to be diving into, I don't know if y'all heard, but the Saints ran 126 plays of scrimmage over the weekend, and there's a lot that's happened. 126 plays of scrimmage action. That's a whole lot. But we're going to be going through that. We're going to talk about defensive takeaways. The secondary stood up. The rest of the offense looked good. The quarterback update. We're going to be going through all of that on today's episode. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. But jumping into things, I must say Jamar Chase had the right take, although, I was more of a Devery Henderson guy. But that's besides the point.
LSU biased. LSU bias. I love that. That's my guy.
Oh man, no. But this past week of practice was there. I was there. Ross was there. We got to see a lot of football being played, and I think it was the best day for Tyler Shough. I don't think that he's done enough to be like, hey, he's the starter. But in a game time situation, I think he stepped up and gave his best performance. Was his best performance good enough? I don't know. Ross, what are your feelings on the quarterback competition right now?
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think that Tyler Shough had his best day, but still had some blemishes, right? We've all been there. We're all beautiful, but we have our blemishes and everything. And Tyler Shough was right there in terms of his performance as well. And I think that when it comes to that whole conversation, it's not just about the one day. Now it's about, can he follow up on it? Can he build on it? Can he continue it, especially with preseason football on the way? I'm excited because real football is almost back. And so I think that that's kind of the thing that I'm looking for from him now. I would say that Spencer Rattler is still comfortably in the lead. I don't think that what Tyler Shough did during that scrimmage was enough to really close the gap, but I do think that he's moving forward. It's great to see him moving away from some of the risk aversion that might have limited him a little bit earlier on in camp, see him be a little bit more of a, not a gunslinger, but taking a little bit more risk, being a little bit more aggressive, things like that. So I think what you're seeing is kind of the incremental improvement and a little bit of what it is that the Saints saw in Tyler Shough that made him the 40th overall pick over the course of these recent practices and especially that scrimmage. But I think obviously like there's still a gap right now in terms of the quarterback conversation. But if nothing else, it's going to make this preseason stretch really, really interesting.
Yeah. Liz, what do you think of the progression that we've seen out of Shough from the first practice where we were like, man, this guy might never play in the NFL to now being 10 practices in or whatever it is into his NFL career, and you're starting to see some of the signs of growth?
Well, I think this is, like we talked about at the last show, like this is kind of what we expected from him. And not to put all the blame on Kellen Moore, but training camp was his first team rep activity as a professional football player. So yes, things were going to look a lot different for him. Things are going to be moving a lot faster than what he's accustomed to coming from college. And obviously not having any active pass rush or even linemen in front of him throughout the entirety of OTAs and minicamp. So yeah, for him to start out slow, I think was going to happen regardless of whether he was ready or not come day one. I think just the difference in speed, having full team reps was a big deal. And I think now we're starting to see him settle in a little bit. But I think the most important thing, even more so than his completion percentage, how he's commanding the huddle, how he's moving the ball, is the fact that he's willing now, it seems, to pull the trigger in some of those moments that early on in camp he wasn't willing to do. You have to take chances if you want to be a great player, but especially if you want to be a great quarterback. You've got to be able to make throws in windows that are not huge. And the only way you're going to complete those passes is to take those chances. So I'm happy that he's starting to take some of those chances. And it's part of growth of a young player is being able to see what you can kind of get away with from time to time. Because if you're not doing it in practice, you're not just going to wake up on Sunday and start doing it on game day. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster, trying things out on game day that you have never done before in practice. So I'm happy to see that he's progressing. I'm happy even to see that maybe the quarterback battle is tightening up a little bit, because I think that'll elevate the play of both guys, knowing that it's a little bit closer than it was early on to start camp.
I think what we're seeing right now is what exactly you want in a quarterback camp, and it's that these guys want it. Whenever they're not taking reps behind center, they don't look happy sitting on the sideline. And then, like you see Tyler Shough, he breaks a run and he runs all the way to the end zone. He's not stopping. He's going to score that touchdown, even if the play is blown dead or whatever. Like, these guys are competing, they're fired up, and I think that's what you want to see out of the young guys. Tyler Shough in particular impressed me because he did have a lot of – he threw another interception. He had some missed passes, but that didn't – I didn't see him revert back into being that gun-shy, waiting too long quarterback that we saw early on. Instead, he stayed decisive. He stayed pushing it down the field. He stayed competitive, and I think that's what you need to see. John, what do you think so far?
I mean, the thing is, it the old adage, right? It's not how you start, it's how you finish. And so you want to be getting better. The training camp saying is always you want to get 1% better every day. For these quarterbacks, they need to probably get like 25% better every day. And that math don't math. But look, I mean, it's going to be I mean, you guys tuned into the show. Y'all know it's Spencer Rattler's job until Tyler Shough takes it. I'm just going to keep saying that until something happens. And it's encouraging to see Tyler Shough take some steps, show, okay, hey, there may be something to this guy, right? Like, maybe there is something there, but it's still Spencer Rattler's job. And I still firmly believe at this point, Spencer Rattler is probably going to still end up being the week 1 starter, but things could be really interesting. Like we've talked about on previous shows, when it comes to week 6, week 10, is Spencer Rattler still going to be the starter? That's going to be the question. But for Tyler Shough, it's just building off of the momentum, the days. And look, 126 plays, that's typically 2 games worth on offense. Like, you might get 50 to 75 snaps on offense typically. Now, of course, it was broken up by each quarterback. Jake Haener didn't get a lot of the reps, really. So it's just kind of more of a 2-man battle, if you will, between Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shough. So it's just one of those to where I think Shough is showing some signs of improvement, and you got to shake that rust off. You just got to come in there, kind of establish this footprint, because if you guys remember back in like OTAs, minicamp, especially rookie minicamp actually is where I want to go, but Tyler Shough was bringing the guys after practice into the hotel room in the lobbies and studying and stuff. And so this guy has the football IQ. They both have the drive. They both have the want. The execution is what just needs to be there for both of these quarterbacks. And so I'm encouraged to see Tyler Shough take a step forward for sure, but I still got to go with Spencer Rattler. He's the more comfortable player, and rightfully so. He's been there. So can Shough keep going when they go out to the West Coast and stuff here soon? That's what I want to see, and I want to see him lie bullets against the Chargers. That's really what I think his proving grounds really will come.
Yeah, Les, I wanted to ask you, because I was interested in the fact that this was like their first scrimmage, their first game scenarios, and that's where Shough showed the best. Is the idea of a gamer like real? Could he just be in a better mood, in a better position to play once they have those real game situations in practice rather than your normal like 7-on-7s and whatnot like that?
Not in the NFL for a quarterback, at least in my experience. Like there is no such thing as a quarterback that stinks in practice and then is just balling on Sundays, right? Like that. I don't think I've ever seen or heard of that before. I've seen with my own two eyes guys that are former Saints be terrible in practice, but turn up on game days, but they weren't quarterbacks. And I'm not going to say any names, but he's the guy that played defense and he played DB, and he just later in his career, it wasn't high effort. But when we turn on the game tape on Sundays, you're like, oh, this dude balled. So it's possible, but highly, highly unlikely for a quarterback, right? There's too much on the quarterback's shoulders, and maybe you guys can guess who it is. I'll tell you if you guess it right.
We're good.
We have some names. Right? We have some names.
They might be tuning in secretly. You know?
Look, I'm not trying to dog him at all. I know that at that point in that stage of his career, he would say, you can either get this on Sunday or you can get it throughout the week. You tell me which one you want. So, hey, and he showed up every single Sunday. Like there was never a time where we're like, man, this dude didn't practice too well this week. Like, what are we gonna like? No, we knew he was gonna turn it on Sunday. But a quarterback, he doesn't have to be great every single day as the starting quarterback in practice, but he's got to prove that he's capable every single day. And you can't be a guy that's either regressing, scary, or just doesn't show that he has what it takes in practice and then expect for him to turn it on Sundays. I don't think that's possible for a quarterback, or it's very, very highly unlikely that could happen for a quarterback, in my opinion.
Yeah. Dylan, can I give some numbers from the scrimmage? Because I'm curious to see what everybody has to say about this. Now, these aren't like passing stats, but this is just kind of how the scrimmage broke out. And I think there's some interesting context here. So 126 plays, 18 total drives. Each drive represented a different scenario. Sometimes they were, starting on the 35 and the own 35 and driving. Other times they were starting in the plus 40 and driving. Sometimes it was 2 minute, whatever. So the way that this all broke out is that out of the 18 drives, Tyler Shough saw 8, Spencer Rattler saw 6, Jake Haener saw 4. Going a little bit deeper than that, every single one of Spencer Rattler's 6 drives were against the first team defense. 5 of 6 were with the first team offense. Tyler Shough had 2 drives with the first team offense, no drives against the first team defense, and Jake Haener had no drives with the first team offense and only 1 drive against the first team defense. So I'm curious what that says to everybody, because I might be tripping in terms of what it says to me, but I'm curious about what stands out about that and what that might potentially mean, even if it's just about coming up to this first Chargers preseason game and really might not tell us anything beyond that. But what does that say to you guys in terms of hearing the way that that's kind of broken out?
I think that, I think we can read into it too much, but as this is a podcast where we're talking about stuff a lot, like we should read into it. I think that the fact that Shough did not compete against the first team defense, you should look at how he performed from that lens and not from he looked better than Spencer Rattler did or Jake Haener did. Like he wasn't going up against the best defense, right? He wasn't going up against the starters. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but if there's something that if there's some form of context that I'm trying to provide, that's where I'm going to start, is not necessarily who he was on the field with offensively, but who he was competing against defensively. So if he had his best day yet, he was with the first offense against the first defense, I would be a lot more excited than I am. Okay, he had these drives. He seemed to be the better guy on the day, but again, he wasn't competing against the starters on defense. So, and for those who don't know, generally teams have a significant drop off from first team offense or first team defense to second team defense, which is similar to first string offense to second string offense. It's just, it's not college football. You don't have, 55 stars on your team. Like you have a certain level of depth And generally it's different from position to position. So you can swap one guy out and maybe put one guy in and things remain the same. But once you swap the entire unit out, it's just not the same. And you have to look at it from that, I think, from that viewpoint. And again, I'm not trying to undercut what he did. I'm not trying to poo-poo on the success that he had in that scrimmage, but I do think that it's important to say, like, okay, he did well, but this wasn't against the starters. And if he is to play with the starting offense in Sunday's game, it's going to be against some. I wouldn't say the Chargers are probably going to play all of their starters, but it's probably going to be against most of the starters from the Chargers defense. So then you would really, really get a good sense of kind of where he is and how well he would do against them. I think that would provide a better idea of where he is in his development at this stage.
I think it's going to be fascinating to see what the share is going to be. I think not that it'll be telling, like, is he going to turn to Shough one game, like maybe the second game at home? Rattler does more in the first game here against Chargers. How much of the starters are going to play? That's another thing too. You know, third preseason game, that's probably not going to be a lot of things. That's kind of probably going to be more to figure out your depth. But I mean, these are going to be big games for Tyler Shough regardless. And I think not that Spencer Rattler is just going to get the time off or anything, but I don't think we'll see a lot of Spencer Rattler. Like, we're going to say, okay, we need to see it on a couple of drives. But I think with Tyler Shough, it's like, we want you to get this rep and this experience. We want to see how you react in some of that, because that's what Rattler did in a lot of his games last year too. He was a lot of second half starter, first half starter. I mean, he went a good bit. And so I'll be interested to see how Kellen Moore breaks this down for the Saints this year or this preseason.
Yeah. Well, let's keep this quarterback conversation going. Maybe touch on a little bit more of the offense coming up next. Listen, I had a great time at Saints training camp, but it was hotter than the edges of a pastry that I just cooked in the microwave. And by the end of it, I was completely drained of energy. Thankfully, I had a 5-hour energy transfusion shot, and from then on, I was moving as cool as the center of that same pastry. It is also my go-to when I'm on the golf course. So it's time for you to fuel up and turn it up with 5-hour energy transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one is a hole-in-one for your energy game. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5, hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your first order. Whether you're meeting up with your friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-hour energy shots today.
Okay.
I would have said hottest Tabasco sauce, maybe that, but I mean,
I like the pastry analogy.
Pastry. I mean, he's not wrong. You're not wrong.
I had the name of a specific pastry in there, but then I realized they probably wouldn't like that. Anyway,
they got to pay us. They got to pay us for that.
Anyway, moving on. Well, actually, sticking with the quarterbacks, I wanted to say this about Tyler Shough's performance and not facing the first team defense. It's that what really stood out to me wasn't like his numbers or anything specific that he did, like this throw to Rashid Shaheed against Isaac Yadav or whatever was great. But it was more of like the traits, because frankly, no quarterback had a very good day. I mean, they had 18 drives. There was 1 touchdown scored. There should have been another. Seth Green dropped it. Shout out to Sharif Ishak. He told me to drop that name. But
Ishak?
Ishak, whatever.
It's Ishak.
Ishak.
He's going to get you too.
Okay, I'm not checking my Twitter for the rest of the night.
Sharif.
I'm not checking my Twitter for the rest of the night. But
he's going to call you Dylon.
Listen, I've gotten way worse. I think that it was more of the tendencies and the traits that he showed in his demeanor, like in movement in the pocket, stuff that really would have been done against no matter what team. I just think it was a better overall day. It would have been nice to see him do it against the first team offense, but I think just his everything, like, but the numbers, I think, looked a little bit better. And that's, I guess, just trying to find the positive in what was a dominant day for the defense overall.
Yeah, I think out of the 18 drives, based on the scenarios that were there, I would chart maybe like 7 of them as offensive wins and 11 of them as defensive wins. And when I'm doing that, I'm thinking like, okay, if you're starting from your own 35 as an offense, getting a field goal is a win, right? But then if you're starting on the plus 40, the defense holding you to a field goal is kind of a win for them, like minimizing the impact, minimizing the damage of you starting in their territory. And so with that, and thinking about like turnover on downs, forcing punts and long field situations, things like that, it felt like the defense had the stronger day, and I'd give them 11 wins. And really it started with and we'll get to, actually, I'll save that because we're going to talk defense in a little while, but there was a specific thing that happened after the first couple of drives that kind of changed everything. But I do think that like Tyler Shough should have had another touchdown, but he probably should have had another 2 interceptions too. Jalen Ford had one that he couldn't get his hands on after it was batted at the line on a 4th and 1. So, hey, you might as well, right? Try to gun the ball in when you can. Tyler Shough tried to go to Michael Jacobson, the big body tight end, who was his favorite target of the day. Jacobson, definitely somebody to watch for a potential 53-man roster. Finally, he's been a practice squad guy for so long, and he's been grinding, and he looks like he's pretty close now. That one could have been picked off by Elliott Davison, the undrafted free agent safety out of UTSA, but he collided with Dallas Beanham, the undrafted free agent corner, and the ball, kind of popped out. And so, and they even went live at one point during, like, I don't know, there was just a lot of fun things that happened throughout this practice. But I think contextually, like, there were some ups, there were some downs, and everything as you would expect. But I appreciate the fact that Shough just always stayed aggressive all throughout, which I think was probably the best thing that we've seen from him so far.
What's interesting though is Kellen Moore he's probably talking about passing it a little bit more than what he normally would, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that you're going to get a very pass heavy Saints offense this season. Now it could change, right? But like, I think what we're talking about, leveraging the strengths of the offensive line, regardless of whether you go with a second-year quarterback or a rookie here, the ground game is what's going to be their bread and butter. And if they got a dink and dunk to get down the field to set themselves up, that's the best course of action. Not pushing stuff down the field necessarily, but I just kind of think that's a little bit interesting too, is that, in that scrimmage particularly, that Moore talking about passing it a lot more than probably he would from his tendency perspective. But I don't know. That's just something I would keep an eye out on as we continue to go down the line. And when we do get to week 1, what some of those tendencies might be by Kellen Moore.
Of the 126 plays, 89 passing attempts I charted. 89. It was a lot of passing.
That's a lot of passing.
Well, and I think that in order to really figure out what type of team you are, you've got to practice those types of situations, right? Like, like you, Russ, you've called it scenarios a bunch of times, and it's situational, right? Like it's
right.
Football is a bunch of different. Sorry, my light is blinding me here. Football is by the light. Oh, I'm legally blind. But the teams that are the best at winning situations are usually the teams that are going to win most games. And in order for you to be good at all the situations, you've got to drill them. You've got to practice them. You've got to put your guys in as many different scenarios as you can, so that once you get into the football games, the real games, you're like, oh, we've been here before. We've done that exact situation in practice, a bunch of different times. And you definitely, for him, entrenched as a head coach in his first year in a quarterback battle with 2 super young quarterbacks, dang right, he's going to throw the ball 90 times in a scrimmage. He wants to see what he's got in his guys, right? Like it's not, he's not going to see who's going to win the starting quarterback job by running the ball 100 times in a 126 play scrimmage. It just doesn't happen, right? So he needs to see, he had to do that. And he probably won't do that going forward in preseason games, or probably even regular season games. He's not going to throw it 80% of the time, but it's a necessary part of, helping himself figure out which of these 2 quarterbacks is going to end up winning the job in the end.
I thought it was a really interesting note that he brought up, that Kellen Moore brought up in the press practice press conference is that it was a big test for himself and Brandon Staley as play callers, because they called 126 plays on the day, and they didn't really have that break. Their brains were constantly working. They had to work situational stuff on the fly, and I think that was a really interesting perspective, because it's something that I think a lot of people don't think about. So you do have to practice calling the plays. Yeah. So it was a good overall, I think, a great structure for a scrimmage throughout everything. It was fun.
And not a lot of rehuddles either. I mean, John, you remember we were in Irvine last year, just the amount of rehuddles and resets and everything like that we saw. We didn't really see a lot of. We saw some penalties and things like that. False start. There was like one penalty that might have been an intentional grounding. I don't know. They just kind of reset the play and did it again. And then there was like a couple of holding penalties where they backed them up and quarterbacks had to fight their way out of 1st and 20 and everything. So it was good to see all that get worked, but we didn't see a lot of rehuddles at all. But that was what we saw a lot of in the previous year's games.
Yeah, tempo matters. I mean, it's just one of those things you just see. And again, I think about last year, some of the struggles was just, I would say, lethargic, right? Like, you got to have some more urgency. You have to have some, get that, because you don't have a fortnight just to be able to call a play and get in there, 40-second play. I mean, like, that goes quickly, you know what I mean? So in some of them with the rule changes and stuff, I mean, that seems like such a simple thing, but if you pick up 5-6 yards on first down, then you have to take a delay game or use a timeout, or then you're just not set, or you have to rush up to the line and you're getting a holding penalty or somebody's illegal shift. We've seen plenty of those pre-snap penalties that have killed this team over the past couple of years. And so tempo absolutely matters, especially for, again, a young quarterback, especially if they're trying to do the run. I expect a lot of this RPO stuff to continue to be a big element for this team. It could set up some play action with being kind of a run for first type set attack, if you will. So again, I'm with you. That's a good sign for a lot of people that may not really put that much emphasis on the details like Mock would do. Oh Lord, look at the details.
The details. Speaking of details, Fortnite, 2 weeks, by the way. That's how long a fortnight is. 2 weeks.
Call of Duty Warzone.
See y'all later. I'm out of here.
Call of Duty Warzone.
People, jeez.
Call of Duty Warzone. Not as good of a game. I think that moving off of quarterback just for a couple of minutes, I think that wide receiver is something that I still think that we're waiting to see a little bit more of. Obviously, you need the quarterbacks to play a little bit better, but there are also times where people just weren't getting open. And we'll get a little bit into that with the defensive standing out next in the next couple of segments. But I think Rashid Shaheed is the biggest winner at wide receiver outside of quarterback on offense. Well, maybe in all of the offense, I think Rashid Shaheed is the biggest winner. He looks bigger, but he doesn't play any bigger. He's having, he's the only guy really making plays right now. And, that's a good thing, but also for a team that needs more wide receivers to stand out. I mean, I'm not worried about Chris Olave or Brandon Cooks once the season rolls around. I think that they'll be fine, and they've had their moments. But I think that, like, Mason Tipton's, he had a couple of moments. Donovan Peoples-Jones had some moments, but he also had some drops. I think that we're still just waiting on more from the rest of the wide receiver room.
Yeah, I think Bub Means is probably one of the ones that I feel like has had a pretty quiet camp. You know what I mean?
Really
surprising.
And
so I want to see a little bit more from him. I would say, we've talked again at this roster position. Cedric Wilson Jr. probably feels really entrenched in that wide receiver 4 spot in some aspects, just because of the blocking and all these other stuff that he could do. Not saying that things can't change, but again, I think he's got a big favorite target on him, if you will, to make the final roster. And so I think Dante Pettis and Donovan Peoples-Jones is kind of interchangeable. And, with Bub Means, again, I just want to see more. And so hopefully he's somebody that can come through when we do see some preseason action. I think it's going to be super important for him to kind of show the coaching staff what he's got, as all people want to do. Right. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all those guys are going to have to share the wealth. Right. There's only one football to go around. And obviously we love to have 6, 7, 8 starting caliber receivers. But the reality is there's only going to be 2 or 3 of them on the field at a time. So if we got our top guys that are healthy, those 4, 5, and 6 guys are going to have to contribute in some way, form, or fashion on special teams. Like that's the reality of playing wide receiver in the NFL. So while we could be waiting for some of those guys to step up and make more plays, and it is possible that those guys, some of the younger ones in particular, can start making more plays throughout the rest of the preseason and grab a roster spot. But even those guys are going to have to play special teams if they want to get a jersey on Sunday. So, like, yes, we're talking about how is the rest of that receiving core going to round out. But we also have to add to that, like, they're going to have to play special teams. It's not just about what they're doing, from the playmaking standpoint of playing wide receiver out there.
Yeah. Well, I'm tired of teasing it. We're going to talk defense and talk who stood out and who won and who had the best days over on the defensive side of the ball coming up next. Sorry, those were tears of joy because football is finally back. We're playing games again, and you can come up to games soon. I'm going to be going to games, and there's nowhere else I'm going to be using other than Gametime. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. Right now, on Gametime, tickets to get into the first home Saints preseason game against the Jacksonville Jaguars are just $7. Gee, I wonder why. The crazy thing is that the price will actually only go down as the kickoff gets closer. You can get in the door for just $7, and then you can see the quarterback competition for yourself as New Orleans tries to decide between Tyler Shough and Spencer Rattler. Sorry, Jake. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, the defensive side of the ball. I think that we have to start with the secondary because both on the field during plays and after plays, I think that is the biggest thing that we saw. And I want to start with Justin Reid because we mentioned with him, we had a long talk about Tyrann Mathieu' retirement and how important it is to have Justin Reid come in and be that guy, be that leader. And I think you got your first little taste of it. The offense came out. They scored a touchdown. They drove down the field in the first couple of drives, and then multiple players talked about after practice. Justin Reid got the defense together. He was like, "Y'all are better than this. We're better than this. We're men. We got to go out there and step up the day." And then from then on out, the defense dominated. And multiple players mentioned that was the turning point in defense for them. And I think that is invaluable to have for this young defense going through a scheme change and all of the personnel changes that they've seen. Justin Reid has looked every bit of the part so far.
Yeah. After those first 2 drives where you saw Spencer Rattler lead a field goal drive from the opposite from his own 35, you saw Tyler Shough lead a touchdown drive from his own 35. After that, that's when Justin Reid said, nah, and basically challenged the rest of the defense to play up to the standard. Then the defense won the next 3 situations after that. Then the offense won the next 3, and then the defense went on a run of 7 straight wins by the situation alone. Now, I think we saw the offense maybe getting a little bit more gassed than the defense was as the day went on. But, I mean, you could see immediately the impact of Justin Reid kind of challenging everybody, challenging that defense, stepping into that leadership role with those 3 straight situational wins right after the 2 losses to start off the drives and the work for the day. I thought that was a pretty big moment. And it led the defense. They won after the 3-3 exchange. They won 9 of the last 11. Is that right? Yeah, 9 of the last 11 situations after that. And so I thought that was a huge moment to kind of see Justin Reid already step in and take on that leadership role.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just got to give them a boot and patoot. You know what I'm saying?
A boot and patoot.
Boot and the patoot.
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, obviously that speaks to his leadership, but it shows that in a situation like that or scrimmage game, whatever, he takes it personal.
Mhm.
And if it's up to him to make sure that the rest of the defense takes it personal, then so be it. Like whatever it takes, you just hope that it doesn't have to get to that. Okay, we're down 14-0 in this game. We better get it going. And on a team that is going to be what I believe we're going to see this season, getting down 14-0 early in games is not going to be a good situation for this team. So, like, yes, it was a great leadership moment for him, a great job of him galvanizing the troops and getting them together. And hopefully this is a learning lesson for them moving forward that, like, hey, we can't start slow in any of these games going forward. Like, we have to be like the anchor. Like, we have to be the thing that the foundation of what we're doing on this team. If we can kick rear ends on defense, then we give our offense a chance to be able to go out there and do what they do. But if we're already setting our offense up for failure by giving the other team a 2-touchdown lead, then it's going to be bad for everybody. So great to see him take that personal. And I think everybody on both sides should take it personal. I know, like, if we were in a situation-based practice and we were losing a situation to the defense, everybody would kind of look around and be like, all right, obviously Drew will be the one vocal about it, but everybody will be like, right, bro, like let's get this thing going. And sometimes it does take a player to do it. It's not always the coach that can get the guys going. But again, like a great job by him and a great job of the defense of responding properly in that situation. And like you said, Ross, winning the day.
Yeah. And I think the thing that was really impressive about it too is that he didn't just gather his unit, right? Not just the first team guys. He brought the entire defensive roster together, had that sort of talk or challenge or whatever. And then you saw it resonate with all three of the teams, if you will, all the way down the roster.
And I think it was the energy was there on the defense from then on out the rest of the day. There were two back-to-back plays, especially where Julian Blackman broke up a pass. And Julian Blackman, by the way, he has been lights out. He's looked incredible. I think that has been a 5-star signing so far. But there was a play where he broke up a pass, ran to the defense, ran to the fans through the offensive team, and was like, now he shouted some words I won't say on the show. And then on the very next play, Kool-Aid came up with an interception and then ran to the fans and did the same thing. And also Kool-Aid, another name, he has been incredible through camp so far. I think that he has looked every part of the cornerback one that we have needed to see from him through camp because he's stepping into that new role. And I think he has taken the challenge well and stepped up his play and his energy and his vocalness to this point.
Big time.
I mean, this is what you want to see, right? I mean, the defense has got to be this team's bread and butter. I get it. Like, this is going to be their best friend. And we've talked about this on this show for months about the secondary, the leadership, the things that need. We've even talked about who needs to bring the energy and the passion. So I'm with Lance. Like, you got to have that when you start a game. You can't get down and then say, we need to kick it into high gear. I get it. Sometimes you might be playing not as hard as you can, but I mean, it is practice, right? But this is a meaningful practice and you're trying to set a tone. So for this Saints team, this defense has got to lead the way. They got to create some turnovers. They got to get some stops. They've got to create some short fields because that's what's going to help out your quarterback. It doesn't matter who's going to play on the other side. And if you can get that run game going, it makes the defense a little bit easier. And I mean, because we saw this last year, the defense be out there for a 10 to 12 play drive. Then the offense goes 3 and out. Then the defense has to come right back in. And then it's the same thing. So it's like, that's why I always talk about this team never being in sync and never being able to play. If they can't play complete game, they just can't win. And I don't know. They're the only team for the life of me that suffers from that. I think every other team can luck into a win or have that happen and not play like that. But not the Saints, man. They got to have this defense, and I think the secondary is going to be big for them. I love hearing Kool-Aid doing his thing. I know we've talked about him last year. Was technically sound is what Joe Woods called him and such. And so I really am excited about what the secondary. And look, I also tip in Jonas Sanker too. I think he's somebody that I think absolutely is going to end up being a really good gem in this secondary and play a big role for this team too.
Yeah. I like also moving past the secondary. I think the linebackers have been a bright spot so far, and maybe the depth. It isn't the Demario Davis or Pete Werner that are making the biggest plays in the linebacker room. It's Nephi Sewell, who has 2 interceptions at this point, and Danny Stutzman, who is playing at 110% every snap of the ball. So I think that the linebacker depth is something that I think has bitten New Orleans in the past, but they're younger guys, but they're looking solid so far.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a certain show talking about Nephi Sewell as a player to watch coming in.
Just saying. And
I
I think Danny Stutzman came up in a couple conversations too. I feel like somebody was pretty high on him. I can't remember.
Maybe once or twice.
A couple times. But isn't that a refresher though? Even to DeMarco Jackson getting in the conversation. But with it's interesting because I think with Stutzman, probably more linebacker 3 because the role that Nephi plays is he doubles on special teams a lot, and so I think his role is going to be more defined than that. But look, the way he's playing, he's played in some meaningful snaps and meaningful games for this team. He's somebody that, they might have something good there in the event that something happens to the other guys. Hopefully not. They need Demario out there for every snap they can. They need prime Pete Werner this year. So it's not like you want to have that happen, but it's going to be hard to keep those 2 off the field if they continue to have the camp that they're having. But good signs for the linebacker depth. I know that was an area that I was a little bit concerned a little bit coming into the camp.
Well, and another thing with the depth, that's a good thing. Sorry, Ross, but like a lot of times people look at depth as an injury only type of situation.
Yep.
If guys aren't playing well, if we've got depth, they can be replaced. Like it happens literally every single week all around the NFL where starters get replaced for a week or so, and then it becomes a long-term thing. And then that's a lot of times how guys who are kind of unheralded, unheard of, or guys with not high expectation become big-time players in the NFL. And really, that's kind of how I got my break on offense. Like somebody wasn't quite playing up to the standard, and Sean came over to me in stretch during walkthrough the day before a game, and he said, "Hey, you're starting this week." And I was like, "What? Like tomorrow?" He's like, "Yes, you're starting tomorrow." I was like, "All right, bet." Like I was like, "Say less," But it wasn't because of an injury. The following year, 2008, Colston had the thumb injury. I was kind of third-ish receiver before that, and then I kind of blew up after Colston got hurt. That's one scenario, and that's the one that's usually talked about. But the one that's less talked about is a guy that has a job that isn't holding up his end of the bargain and ends up losing his job because he's not doing that. If we've got depth, that provides options, not just in the case of emergency or injury.
Right.
It happens in the course of, hey, we watched the film, you're not doing what we want you to do, or you don't seem to be getting any better week after week. So we're going to give this other guy an opportunity. That allows a defense to potentially get better as well. And I think that's a good thing for this defense to have, especially at a position of need with a guy that's got injury history and another guy that's going into his 14th year. It's definitely a necessary piece to this puzzle if the Saints want to have any level of success defensively.
And it's great when you have a new defensive system, a new defensive coordinator, new coaching staff to kind of have those options that are this coaching staff's options to be able to fall back to in any of those, we'll just call them replacement situations, right? Any variety of ways that they can happen. And it's interesting because Danny Stutzman and his self-proclaimed war mustache that he's grown out for the scrimmage, he talked about how he's played mostly Mac, not Mike, but Mac over in this 3-4 system. And so that is kind of right behind Demario more than it is behind Pete Werner. But I guarantee that if something were to happen, there's a chance that you just look at Danny Stutzman as a guy you want to get out on the field, and he would be very ready to cover either one of those positions. And of course, Nephi Sewell has played his way into that. And John, I'm glad that you brought up DeMarco Jackson, because I'm not saying that DeMarco Jackson is about to take off or anything like that, but he has had what I think is his best camp so far as a pro, making plays over on defense, mostly with second and third team rotations and things like that. But it's the most present I've seen him outside of special teams so far throughout training camp. So if you're looking at kind of a 5 deep when it comes to that position, and then you throw in a guy like Tyreen Powell, who seems to be picking up steam, along with some of the other undrafted free agents, it's a pretty good situation, at least through the preseason, when you're going to have to dig into all of this, like every level of player, that the Saints are going to be able to get a pretty good look at these guys. But I do think that it's interesting that they've specifically so far focused on Danny Stutzman as being sort of that MAC communicator, but I don't think that he's going to be limited to that role if ever there's an opportunity that opens up elsewhere.
Missed opportunity, saying return to the Mac. Just saying.
Return of the Mac. That's one of my favorite songs of
for
all
some,
time.
for those who gotta
Great song.
find out that song. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully y'all know what we're talking about. If not,
Well, hopefully Ross just didn't get us copyright stricken. But if we survive it, coming up next.
Don't worry, I didn't sing it that well.
No, I mean, it could have been a music video for all I know. If I close my eyes and shut my ears off and imagined the music video.
Yeah, there you go.
Back,
That'll do it.
But coming up next, we are going to stick on the defense, talk a little defensive line, and our special teams coming up next. The defensive line, I think it's kind of hard to exactly see just how good they've been in a lesser contact situation, but I think that it's been a positive. I think the pass rush has looked solid, and I think the interior with Devon Godshaw has looked better. Ross, what has stood out to you so far across the defensive line?
Jasheen Davis is definitely a big one. I mean, obviously the starters are guys that have stood up, but I think that right now we've watched Chris Rumph, Jasheen Davis, and it's starting to happen with 7th round pick Fadil Diggs passing up Isaiah Fosky. I think that's the truth so far when it comes to this edge rusher group. We haven't seen a lot of Cam Jordan. He's kind of they're treating Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, and Brandon Cooks kind of the same. They know that how those guys fit. Those guys know how they fit in this scheme. And so they're not overworking them here over the course. But that does give us opportunities to see more of Chris Rumph, more of Jasheen Davis, all that. I think that those guys, as good as the starters have been, and Chase Young and Carl Granderson, I think the thing that's been most sort of pleasant as a surprise is that there's some depth there, young depth that feels, I don't know that you're not going to get the same level of production. There's going to be a drop off, but maybe better depth at the position that we've seen in the past, I think might be fair to say.
I would like to say I did see Cam Jordan hit the Spider-Man 3 dance on the sideline.
He did do that. Yes.
But that is, in terms of on
Emo
the field,
Toby.
yeah, we haven't seen this, but it's not
Emo
that
Peter.
surprising. But yeah, I do think Jasheen Davis is, from that group, the name that, or at least the number that I saw pop the most on defense, and I think that's a positive. Lance, what do you think we need to see from these guys on the defensive line, especially the exterior, especially with like Isaiah Fosky still not having the camp that everyone wants to see him?
Well, I mean, it just goes to show how big and important these preseason games are getting ready to be, especially for a guy like him that I would say, highly drafted last year, some decent expectation as to what type of player he could be. But I honestly don't know. I think these preseason games are going to be a big time tell for the depth at that position, because I don't think we're going to see Granderson too much. We're not going to see Cam or Chase Young too much. We probably won't see Cam at all. So these younger guys are going to get a ton of opportunity. And it's like, okay, if you want a roster spot, go get it. Like, there's nothing more that we can do other than provide opportunity. And what you do with that opportunity is going to be what either makes or breaks you when it comes to your chances of making this roster. And then, once we get into the season, we're talking about what guys are going to be playing, what's the rotation going to look like. That's a whole different conversation for another day. But for now, it's about going and basically taking what they think is theirs. What better time to do it than, Sunday in SoFi Stadium when the bright lights are on, and it really doesn't mean anything as far as the record goes, but it means everything as far as the bottom of that 90-man roster goes, and them trying to perform on a level to which would allow them to grab a roster spot when it comes time for them to make the 53-man roster. I mean, I just think that it's like, you can talk about how great a guy has been in camp throughout the entirety of the practices, but if he goes and lays an egg in these games, then it's going to be like, well, this dude might just be a good practice player, but if a guy's had a really good camp and then he goes and validates your feelings about him being a really good practice player in those games by being a good player in the game, it's kind of like that's what you want to see. You want to see what they're doing in practice spill over onto the game day field, and not be a guy that kind of goes into a shell on game day and isn't able to make plays for whatever reason, right? Like it's usually the guys that do well and make plays in practice are the ones that do it in the games. But maybe going up against a different set of characters, a different team, a different scheme. I mean, it could be good for some of these guys to stand out. And, as a former undrafted player myself, or a bottom of the roster guy, I hope they are able to go out there and put their best foot forward.
Yeah. John, what have you seen from the defensive line so far?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of promise there. I think, again, I don't really need to see a lot from Chase Young and Carl Grerson, and I really don't need to see it from Cam Jordan, right? Like, I know those guys are going to be fine, right? I think we've talked plenty about Chase Young and Carl Grerson. I think the scheme suits them the best, the freedom that it gives them to be able to rush after the quarterback. And I see improvements in how they're stacking up against the run. And I don't like him in coverage, but Chase Young isn't that bad in coverage. I'll just say that. Like, I don't say he's a complete liability, but I think when you look at the other spots that are up for grabs, it's just going to be fascinating to see where they go. Like, is it Jonah Williams going to be good enough to make this roster? Is a Chris Rump going to be somebody that can get in? Or is Isaiah Fosky going to do anything in the preseason, right? Like, I think he's got the most pressure on him going into this thing. I just want to see what the players are going to be able to bring it in the preseason. Now, I don't think that means they have to get all these sacks. I just want to see how they do against the run. If they are going to drop in coverage, I mean, you're talking about, I'd be surprised if you see many blitz packages, if any. Like, you usually are running a very vanilla, basic defense and offense when it comes to the first preseason game. So it's just kind of like best on best, or, one-on-one type situations and such. It's basics. And so can those guys, especially some of these that are ascending undrafted rookies, can they pick up the fundamentals? Can they do the live bullets? And are they able to get some success here? And I think that's what's going to be the biggest key for a lot of these players. But again, I think the most pressure right now is on Isaiah Fosky. Can he deliver? Will he deliver? He has to have a good preseason. He cannot just have just flash it every now and then at practice and then fall off the face of the planet. Like, he's somebody that needs to put the entire thing together for practice and camp and the preseason games. Yeah.
Switching over to the special teams, I think the biggest star of training camp might be Blake Groupy. I mean, he's 20, I think 25 of 26 so far.
26 to 27.
26 to 27.
Yep.
I'm shortchanging him. He hit him from 58 and 54 on scrimmage day. I think that he's just been lights out, and it's great to see, because we know how good he can be on kickoffs, but you want to see the consistency, the clutchness, the big legs show on field goals, and that's what he's done so far.
Yeah, man, he's been awesome.
That's what you need.
Yeah. I mean,
and I think,
go ahead.
I was just thinking, an offense where you have a new offensive system and young quarterbacks, some of your scoring potential might need to come from your kicker, at least early on in the season. And when you have a guy like Blake Groupy, who has been so cool, so composed, so unrattled at all, or altogether, that's such a good space to be for a team that's probably gonna have to rely on special teams to win that hidden yardage game and potentially even put points on the board.
Yeah, calm under pressure. I think that's the biggest thing for him. And I think that's what I'm most impressed about him. And I remember Darren Rizzi talking about the story. I mean, his rookie season, it wasn't that he wasn't bad or anything, but again, to tell this story or just to kind of elaborate on Blake Groupy, when he came into the NFL, like he just went, and Lance, you might have followed a similar path, but you go from end of school to prep to kicking camps, not you, Lance, because you didn't kick, but you're doing all these camps and stuff to get ready.
Yeah, I was just saying, give him some time. Give him some time.
But you're getting ready for the draft. You're getting ready, whether it's pro days. You're getting ready for everything. Then you have to go through the draft. Then you go to rookie mini camp, and then you're at OTAs, and then you're in mini camp. Then you get a small little break. Then you go into training camp. It's preseason. Then you're on the final roster, and then you're in active games. He didn't get a break until after his rookie season when the season ended. And so I know Darren Rizzi talked about that a lot last year, is the fact that he finally got to get some rest in. And then I think he played really well for this team last year. And again, a well-rested kicker, not having to go through those types of things again, I think it really shows for Blake Groupy that he could be a very sneaky asset for this team, and that a team who might get a lot of their points, most all of their points from number 19 this season.
Yeah.
I think you're trying to control the field position game for the other side of the ball, especially with the new kickoff rule. You're kicking off from 65 yards away. You're trying to land in this, it's a 10-yard landing zone, but you're really trying to get it into the 5-yard landing zone, right? And everything. And so if you're able to do that, and this is what the Saints did last year, they used the kickoff as a means of trying to make the opposing offense's job harder. They made teams return. They had one of the lowest turnover. No, they had the lowest actually touchback percentage in the NFL. They had one of the best starting field position spots in terms of forcing opposing teams to start further back. All these other pieces, like those are all things that you're trying to do to what Lance was talking about earlier. Like a part of not allowing the other team to put your offense, which is young, new, all that, in a 2-score hole, is to make it really, really tough, not just on the defensive side, but from where they're starting everything off. And Blake Groupy did a really, really good job of that, along with the rest of the special teams coverage unit, the kickoff coverage unit last year. And I think that he's ready to do that all over again, especially now with you're moving those touchbacks from 30 to 35 yards. You want to force them to return, because basically anything worse than a 35-yard return, you get them down at the 34, that's a win right now. And so that's a good spot. So that's another place where I think Blake Groupy, his precision and sort of the calibration that he has with these kickoffs, can really become a bit of a weapon for your special teams, for your defense, and help to keep your offense in good situations.
And while we're on special teams and the importance of field position, there's been a lot made of the fact that they have 3 punters on the roster right now in training camp. But I think, as silly as it may sound, I think it's important to get that position right, because they're going to have a team that might be punting a lot, just frankly. And you're going to have someone that you can rely on. And I think that right now, Matthew Hayball, I think, has a hold on the job. But I've liked what Kai Kroger. I think Kai Kroger had a pretty nice day on scrimmage day. He had some nice punts. Ross, I know that I see you timing the airtime on every punt. What do you think of the numbers so far?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think hang time numbers are fun, and I love to get them. But obviously, there are going to be certain situations where if you're punting, short area punts and stuff like that, you're not going to have as much hang time, because you're trying to, get the ball in a certain direction becomes more important in those situations. But I will say this, a couple years ago, there was, Lou Headley was here as the punter. It really, he was here through camp last year. And we saw a lot of the rugby style punts to where, you saw, hang times of 2 to 3 seconds sometimes, to where you're just booting the ball and trying to get it, on kind of a line drive, and just hoping that your guys can get down there. Now, Matthew Hayball, James Burnip, and Kai Kroger can all hang this football and give their gunners time to get down to make a stop. And I think Matthew Hayball has shown a lot of consistency there, even more consistency than he showed last year when he got chewed out on the sideline at one point by Darren Rizzi during that Giants game. I believe it was during the Giants game. Was it the Giants game, John, where that happened?
It was the Giants game, yeah. And Alvin had to step in.
Yeah, that's right. I was like, yo, calm down, chill out, coach. And so I think that he's made some major strides in that area. The leg looks a lot stronger. He's able to keep the ball up and give those those gunners an opportunity to get down there to the returners, so we don't have to worry about over pursuing things like that. I think that all of that is, again, like you're trying to win that hidden yardage battle. And a lot of teams look at it as, if you can outpace your opposing special teams unit by 100 yards, that's probably worth a touchdown. That's kind of the way that they look at this when it comes to special teams units. And I think that Matthew Hayball can be an asset when it comes to that. Really, all three of these punters can be an asset when it comes to it. But I don't think that, despite bringing in James Burnett, despite also bringing in Kai Kroger, I haven't seen anything so far concerning for Matthew Hayball, which I think is the most important point to be made in this situation where you have a trio of punters all of a sudden.
Lance, I know you never want to see the punter come on the field, but did it at least feel a little bit better knowing that it was Thomas Morstead?
Like, well, I wanted to see the punter coming on the field because I was a punt returner. So
right. That's fair. That's fair.
I wanted to see your punter.
Opposing.
That's fair. That's fair.
But look, man, like obviously Timo was a rookie when we won the Super Bowl, and we kind of knew early on that he was he was a different cat for sure, but he was a pretty special player, and you saw that in his daily preparation. It wasn't something that, on game day, this dude is just bombing the ball through the roof of the Superdome. Like, we saw it every single day in practice, a guy that had a unique ability to be able to place the ball wherever he wanted to place it, give you the amount of hang time that you wanted. And yes, kickers and punters are weapons if they're really good ones. And I feel like we've got the potential to have two of those guys that aren't just good players, but players that can help us win games this season. And to Blake Groupy, he's had a great camp, but let's see it carry over into the games when the real pressure is on. Like, he's clearly, I think he's going to be the starter, but they're going to want to see him kick well in these preseason games as well.
Yeah. Well, will he kick good in this preseason games, or will he not? Either way, we'll be here to talk about it right here on the Saints Squad show. You can check out me, Ross, John, and Lance on our socials for the latest. We'll be right back here on Thursday, ready to talk more Saints training camp. Before we go, I do want a quick shout out. I just want to shout out to everyone who said hello and showed some love to the Saints Squad show at training camp. It was cool. We had people shout out to me about punters. It was a cool moment. I think as we get ready for the season, I think we've built something really cool here with the Saints Squad show. I love it every week. It's my favorite time. It's my favorite 2 days of the week. And so thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for showing love. Come back on Thursday to show some more love. And then until then, be sure to keep up with Ross Jackson and Locked On Saints for your latest on Saints training camp.